Hello, my name is Art Walaszek, and I'm at the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. I'm going to be talking with you today about caring for people with emotions and behaviors in dementia. This is a recording based on a presentation that I gave at the Breaking the Silence event in Milwaukee on April 21st, 2023. When we think of dementia, we usually think about two main parts. One is that people have changes in their memory or other parts of their thinking, like making decisions or understanding language. And the other part is that they then have changes in their day-to-day functioning, like having a hard time driving or paying their bills or cooking their meals. So those two things together are dementia: changes in thinking, changes in day-to-day functioning. And at the same time, it's also true that many folks with dementia will also have changes in their emotions and their behaviors. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So, first of all, about 90% of people with dementia will have changes in their emotions and behaviors. We call these behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia, or BPSD. And sometimes these BPSD can be really distressing to the person with dementia or to their caregivers. And sometimes they can even be dangerous. So things like physical aggression or wandering around at night or falling down a lot, those are things that are dangerous to the person with dementia and potentially to folks around them. So it's important for us to recognize these behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia and address them. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So, what are the behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia? I've listed 10 of them here, including how common they are. The number is the percentage of people with dementia who will have these symptoms. So, the two most common are apathy and depression. And those two look a lot alike, but they're different and they're treated differently from each other. So, apathy is when people lose interest, they're not motivated to do stuff anymore, and it doesn't really bother them. Whereas folks with depression, they may also lose interest and not do stuff as much anymore, but they also have changes in their mood. So they're sad, they're upset, they're tearful, they feel worthless, they feel like they're a burden on others. They may even want to die. So those are the elements of depression. But in apathy, the person isn't really bothered by how they're feeling. It's often family members who are more bothered by it. Why is their loved one no longer doing the stuff that they used to do? So apathy, depression, two most common. The third most common that 40% of people with dementia will have is aggression. This could be verbal aggression, like yelling or swearing or using insulting language, or it could be physical aggression, like kicking or biting or punching. This is potentially unsafe, both of the person with dementia and the folks around them. And it's a thing that leads most often to phone calls to someone like me, a doctor, from family members or from facilities like nursing homes. I won't go through all of these behavioral symptoms, but I just want to point out a few others. Delusion. So 31% of people with dementia will have a delusion. A delusion is when you believe something really strongly and firmly, and no amount of evidence is going to sway your mind. So, reasoning with someone who has a delusion is usually not going to work. It's usually just going to lead to frustration. So, in dementia, the most common delusion is that someone is stealing from me. And this arises from having trouble with your memory. I misplaced my wallet. I don't remember where I put it. And for some reason, my brain says, oh, someone must have stolen it from you. And no matter what you tell me, I'm going to believe that you've stolen my wallet. So that's a delusion of theft. The second most common is the delusion that I'm not living in my home anymore. And that could arise because the person maybe forgot that 2 years ago they moved from one place to another. They may go out looking for their quote unquote home, and that could potentially be dangerous. And then the third most common delusion is something called the delusion of infidelity. So it's when the person with dementia accuses their loved one of cheating on them, having an affair on them. It's tough to envision how this could be possible. You're a caregiver 24/7, and sort of how exactly you'd have an affair with someone is not clear. but the person believes it with delusional intensity. So that's a particularly tough one for the caregivers who are already spending a lot of time helping their loved one, and then to be accused of infidelity is not good. Final one that I'll put on here is, or that I'll point out, is hallucinations. So hallucination is seeing or hearing something that isn't actually there. So it's the mind kind of playing tricks on you. So the visual hallucinations can result from a lot of causes, not just dementia. People could be taking a medication that could cause hallucinations. They may have problems with their vision, like if you have a cataract that's blocking out your vision, you could get a visual hallucination. Certain kinds of dementia, like Lewy body disease, you can have a lot of visual hallucinations, and they can be very vivid, very lifelike, realistic hallucinations. Auditory hallucinations or hearing things are less common. The most common types are musical hallucinations, where you hear music playing, or sometimes you might hear noises or hear voices talking to you or about you. Sometimes there is a noise in the environment, and the brain is just kind of interpreting it as something else, or even adding kind of a paranoid touch to it. I want to be clear when I say all these things, folks with dementia are not doing these things on purpose. It is their brain not working quite right because of the dementia resulting in these sorts of symptoms. Okay, so why do folks with dementia get these symptoms? So there's no one explain it all kind of model, but I'm going to present one that I think is quite helpful. This is called the unmet needs model. And so here the idea is we all have needs. We need to sleep, we need to eat, we need company, we need to do stuff that's interesting, we need time to relax. So all of us have needs, and usually we can either manage those needs on our own, or if we need help, we can ask for help. Somewhat dementia, though, they may not be able to do it themselves, and they may have difficulty asking others for help, communicating what it is. Again, it's not on purpose. It's just that their brain can't quite put it together. How do I let someone know that I'm in pain right now, or that I'm bored, or that I'm lonely? And so it may come out as a behavior. It may come out as agitation or wandering or yelling or whatever. And that's not what the person intends. They really need help with something. They just don't know how to communicate that. And so then the caregiver may respond by trying to address that behavior, but then they're missing the underlying thing. What is the need that this person has? And then that in turn means that that unmet need could be even more unmet as a result. So it puts us as healthcare professionals and as caregivers in a tricky spot. We kind of have to be detectives and figure out, what is the person telling me right now by being agitated or refusing to take a medication or whatever it might be? What is their unmet need? And so we can kind of try to figure that out, try to test out different theories about what their unmet need might be. Okay, I'm next going to move on to, if you are caring for someone who has a behavioral or psychological symptom, dementia, emotion, or behavior, what do you do? How do you respond to that? I'm going to start with a couple slides on just kind of general communication tips with older adults. And I already mentioned one, trying to reason or argue or convince, especially someone with a delusion, or if you told them something and 5 minutes later they ask you again and you say, I told you that just 5 minutes ago, you're not going to convince them of that. You can try, but it's probably not going to work, and it's just going to lead to everybody getting frustrated. So roll with it. By not arguing, it doesn't mean that you accept what they're saying. You're just going to move on to a different topic. So distraction can be your friend, kind of help move folks onto other topics. When you're talking with folks with dementia, try to keep it simple. Keep your sentences short, your phrases short, keep the instructions simple. Really break it down into 1 or 2 steps. So instead of, hey, honey, could you go to the kitchen and prepare yourself some lunch and come back here and we're going to watch TV together, break it down to, hey, honey, would you like some lunch? Why don't we go together to the kitchen? And the next step, let's go to the fridge and find some lunch for you to eat. Next step, why don't we work on putting the sandwich together? You get it. So breaking it down into simple steps, and even doing those steps together with the person. So choices, overwhelming people with choices can be tough for folks with dementia. So instead of, hey, honey, what would you like for lunch? Offer a couple of options. Would you like a PB&J or would you like a ham and cheese sandwich today? So still giving the person some options, some opportunity to express what they want, but kind of making it a reasonable amount. And then similarly, kind of going slowly, speaking in simple and direct language as much as possible. Sometimes folks may not understand you verbally. Maybe they'll do better with a gesture or with a picture of some sort. So you can try different things out to communicate with folks. You want to make sure to give the person enough time to respond. So a person with dementia may not be hearing you well, may not be understanding you well, may have slowed processing speed. So it just takes longer to do stuff, to think even. And they may have a hard time getting the words out. So giving folks enough time to respond to your questions is really important. The next bit of advice is a tough one. It's tough for caregivers who are tired, burnt out, frustrated themselves. But it's important because folks with dementia, though they may have trouble understanding what you're saying, they remain pretty good at reading your facial expressions and your gestures. And they may be wondering, why is my loved one upset with me? What did I do wrong here? I'm just trying to understand. So my advice to caregivers, although I recognize this is a tough one, is try to maintain a positive attitude as much as possible. Positive facial expressions, smile as much, again, not as much as possible. I appreciate this is a tough situation. But that facial expression, that kind of calm demeanor can be really helpful for folks. And similarly, when something positive, something good does happen, recognize that. Honey, I really appreciated how you were so calm during that doctor's visit today. Thank you very much. That made my day go a lot smoother. So celebrate those successes and express some gratitude. And I think your loved one will appreciate that. Now, those are communication tips. Here are some tips for day-to-day structure. So it's really important for folks with dementia to have some structure and routine in their day. So though it's harder to learn stuff with dementia, especially to learn facts and figures, learning a routine, kind of something physical to do, actually might be a little bit easier for someone with dementia. They may remember that a little more easily. So good routine, start the day with some activity, especially in the morning time. An ideal thing when the weather's nice, 30 minutes outside, get some light, get some fresh air, get some company. Great way to start the day. Really, any exercise is better than no exercise. So exercise is good for the brain. It's good for preventing or even addressing behavioral symptoms. And even just starting a 10-minute walk a day, starting simple, can be quite helpful. Trying to stick to a schedule. So again, a person with dementia may be able to remember a routine better than they can remember facts and names and things like that. So start the day, 9 a.m. is breakfast, 9:30 is medications, 10 o'clock is the walk outside, et cetera, kind of having a regular routine. And having stuff to do is really important. And the stuff to do should be interesting and stimulating and maybe a little bit challenging, but not overwhelming. And so that could be exercise, that could be puzzles, that could be dancing, that could be going out grocery shopping together. You may have to experiment with different things to see what the person with dementia is able to tolerate and enjoy without it getting frustrating. And then for someone who's wandering around a lot, burns a lot of calories to wander, and you can easily get dehydrated. So make sure to have plenty of food and water on hand, and then room for folks to safely roam. Now, let's say you've done all that and it's not working. There's still a lot of behavioral issues. So what do? You should get some help. And you can turn to social services professionals. We'll talk about that in a minute, or healthcare professionals, folks like me. And you want to be ready for that. You want to be ready for that encounter. So here I've just given you some tips on how to do that. This is a little handy way of remembering. It spells out DEAR, D-E-A-R. So describe the situation. I'm worried about my mom. I'm worried she may have dementia. Her memory's worse. She's forgetting to take her medications. Her blood pressure's high. She's fallen and hit her head. So just the facts, lay them out. What is it that's going on? And then express your concern, get a little bit of emotion in there. I'm worried that she may hurt herself accidentally because she's having a hard time taking care of herself. Now, ask, assert what you need. Could we schedule an appointment with you so that you can examine mom and order some tests? And then close by reinforcing a positive outcome. Thank you for taking my concern seriously. Hopefully, everybody wins in this situation. Your loved one wins because they're getting the medical care they need. You win because you're getting some support, and the healthcare professional wins because they're helping out their patients and their families. So, describe, express, assert, and reinforce a positive outcome. Now the ball is going to be on our court. So what are we going to do as healthcare professionals? Well, we're of course going to talk to your loved one, and we're going to talk to you, and we're going to ask you some questions. What are the behaviors? How long has this been going on? When do the behaviors take place? How long do they go on for? How have you responded? How does it go when you respond in that way? And then critically, how severe is this problem? So there are a lot of these behaviors that are annoying. Someone asking you the same question over and over again, it's pretty annoying. Or you go around the house and they're following you around the house because they're anxious to know where you're at. That can get pretty annoying. That is not dangerous, as opposed to falling, wandering, striking out at others. That is dangerous. So we're going to respond differently. We're going to respond to both situations, but we're going to respond differently to those dangerous situations. We're also going to take a good look at that medication list. There are a lot of medications that can be problems for people with dementia, including making them confused or agitated. Alcohol and drugs like marijuana, turns out, are not so great for the aging brain or for folks with dementia, and could cause some of these behaviors we're talking about. And then we're going to think through a variety of medical things. Could there be an infection? Even like a simple urinary tract infection might do it. Could their chemistry be off? Could they be dehydrated or constipated? Pain. A lot of people with dementia are in pain. And then things like hearing and vision loss are pretty common in folks with dementia and could contribute to behavioral problems. Okay, so now that we've done our assessment, what do we do? Well, if we identified one of those medical problems I just mentioned, we want to address that. Get the person a hearing aid, take care of their pain, take care of their constipation, etc. We get rid of medications or other substances that could be causing a problem, or at least try to lower the doses. We really want to support family members and other caregivers. And there are a variety of programs out there to do that. There are strategies. I just gave you some on those earlier slides, but there are a bunch of others that we can work with family members on so that we can put together a plan. If there are safety issues, we may have to get folks into safe situations. So that might even mean temporarily or in the long run, moving someone out of the home or into a safer spot. And in general, we really try to not add medications unless it's absolutely necessary. So if the person with dementia is under a lot of distress because of these symptoms, or if it's an unsafe situation to them or others, then we'd also consider medications. And if we do add a medication, we want to monitor it very closely. So why am I hesitant about adding medication? Well, for one, we really want to try to avoid polypharmacy. Polypharmacy is when people take 3 or more medications. Many people take many more than that. There are folks who take 5 or 10 medications or even more. And so adding another medicine can be a problem because now these meds could be interacting with each other even more. Unfortunately, a lot of these medications don't actually work all that well for these kinds of symptoms. And they can have lots of side effects like falls, sleepiness, confusion, and even for some of them, death. There's an FDA warning about death with some of these medications. So we really have to carefully weigh the benefits and risks, or the pros and cons of these medications. I will say, if a medication does get started, please don't stop it without talking to a healthcare professional first. And the reason for that is because these medications, maybe they take some time to work, or there might be some withdrawal if you stop the medication suddenly. So please talk to a healthcare professional. Now, before starting a medication or starting one for your loved one, you should ask some questions, including like, what exactly is this medication for? How will my loved one be better or different if this medication works? What are the most common side effects and what are the most serious side effects? How long will it take to work? Some medications take days or even weeks to work, taking it every single day. You want to know that. And then how long will this person need to take the medication? So is this just a few weeks? Is it a few months? Is it for their lifetime? And there should be alternatives. So it should not be medications or nothing. It should be medications or what are some other strategies that might be helpful for your loved one. So list of questions to come prepared to ask your loved one's healthcare professional about. Now, it isn't just all in the healthcare domain. There's the whole social services world out there, and including Stephanie Houston, who works at Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute and Milwaukee Health Services, and it has an incredible amount of knowledge about the resources that are out there to help folks with dementia and their family members. So if you don't know her, she's a terrific person to get to know. Most counties in Wisconsin, including Milwaukee County, have an aging and disability resource center, along with some dementia care specialists. Dementia care specialists are people who have been specifically trained to kind of understand the healthcare system related to dementia and also how to respond to these behaviors that we're talking about. And currently in Milwaukee, those dementia care specialists are Candace LaGrosse and Christina Witron. And then finally, there's the Alzheimer's Association, which has caregiver support groups, educational groups for folks with memory loss, a lot of good resources out there. So I'm going to close here. The bottom line is that by recognizing behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia and addressing them, we can improve the lives of folks with dementia and their caregivers. So thank you very much. Feel free to email me here if you've got any questions, or just feel free to reach out to your friendly WAI representative. Thank you. Bye-bye.